Hey, this is your girl Belladonna Krishana here with your mid-month reading for April 2018. Aries, how you doing? We just came out of the Mercury retrograde period. I know that for some people it was really rough. For me particularly, it was a little bit. It was a lot of things. It was a lot of things. It wasn't particularly rough as it was more so kind of uh, restructuring, moving some old energies out, bringing some new energies in, bringing some old energies in a new way. And so I feel like that was for me the theme of the Mercury retrograde that we just went through. Um, I went ahead and pulled a couple cards from my Libra T deck so that we could really jump into the energies that I was feeling. What I was feeling about your guys' energy for this particular month was a rebuilding, and it's actually not just you. I think it was Gemini, or it was another sign that I was reading for that sort of felt the same sort of energy. It's a sort of energy of having to now rebuild. But I feel like you guys are sort of rebuilding from scratch on some level. And I feel like perhaps the Mercury retrograde took care of a lot of things that needed to be moved out of your guys' energy. We are definitely in, especially with the blue moon that just happened, we're in a very new energy right now. And this energy is going to last for the next, sorry, oh, my nose itches. This energy is going to last for the next 2 years. And so this is about what's going to be happening within the next 2 years of our lives, and how we're going to better balance. I believe it was in Libra. So how we're going to better balance the new energies kind of coming in. So, we're going to start with the energy of the past, or the more recent past, which is the Ten of Swords. And so this is basically talking about, as we're talking about foundations, this is definitely talking about anything. Joseph Campbell, I believe it was Joseph Campbell, said anything that is well, it was either Joseph Campbell or Manly P. Hall, one of the two. But one of the two sort of theosophers said that anything that is built on anything that is not real can be destroyed. Anything that is real can't be destroyed. And so if you're building things on faulty foundations, if you're building houses of cards, if you're building things on sand, they're not going to be able to weather the storm because they're not real. They're not placed in permanence. The only thing that is permanent, of course, is energy. As they say, energy is not created or destroyed. And so when things are leveling out for you, a lot of times people can see that as being a detriment. They can also not be able to move out of those energies. You guys are a very passionate sign. You're a fire sign, just like myself. And so with being a fire sign and having things build very quickly, sometimes you're building things really quickly with not the best materials of the moment. Now, the best materials would be, like, if we're talking about in terms of relationship, building a relationship off of codependency, or building a relationship on sort of superficial means, and then later finding out that those things were not real, or those things were not true. We can also talk about a job. If you had gotten a job and the job's not quite working out, then this is because you have found a job based off of a need for also its own sort of version of dependency, but sort of a desperate, when you're building things out of desperation versus building things off of passion, or building things off of um your true, I always say true and authentic, because that is what we're here for, your true authentic expression. And so this is kind of speaking of the past energies, or recent past energies that we've just kind of come through. And so now that everything's been leveled out, now that if it felt like things were crumbling beneath you, it's because they were. But now we're in a much better period to be able to build. So we have the Sun card. So the Sun card comes out And this is saying that I feel like through the Mercury retrograde period, you've actually seen where, perhaps seen these things. You've seen where perhaps you didn't build things the way that you should have. Perhaps you were building things on faulty foundations, and now you're finally seeing it. And now you're finally ready to not only move on but move forward into a better time. But that tearing down of the foundation needed to happen for you to be able to come to a place where you're finally happier, freer. Probably, I feel like the key word is a sense of freedom. There's a sense of freedom here because of the fact that you have let go of some things that actually were quite burdensome, um, because they were just built in the wrong energy. We have the Prince of Scepters, and this very much feels like you guys to me. So this very much feels like the energy of now charging forward, the energy of now being ready for a new thing. I feel like maybe you guys have even gotten some new ideals and plans kind of sorted out through this kind of Mercury retrograde period we were just in. I would say, however, that this prince of scepters and not the king of scepters or wands, and so this person has a tendency to kind of piously or kind of pompously build things, um and yet still in the same cycle of not really being built on the correct foundations. And so just be very careful and very discerning about where your energy is going and how your foundations are being built, and make sure they are actually solid. Of course, nothing in this world, in this particular, this particular dimension, is permanent, but there are energies that are. Love is an energy that does not die. You know, um, uh, uh, the need to give isn't an energy that or giving in general is not an energy that necessarily dies. So there's these kind of sort of what we call kind of higher vibrational things that are the best foundations to build things off of. Hope that makes sense. So, anyway, let me go ahead and pull cards from my other deck, and we are going to see, what's coming up. What do we have to look forward to? What information do we need in order to do better to do better in this next phase, in this next 2-year cycle that we're going to be entering, or that we rather are in at the current moment. So give me 1 second to shuffle these cards. I apologize for these readings coming out a little bit later than expected. I actually have been quite exhausted through this Mercury retrograde period that we were just in, so my apologies. All right. I'm getting through all these videos, but like fairly slowly. So while we're shuffling, make sure you like, share, subscribe, and comment. I always love seeing your comments. I've had a lot of comments more recently, and it's been really, really great to know that not only is my truth being heard as far as what we're coming up to in the readings, but also that there is so much support out there. Okay. All right. So we're talking about foundations, and one of the cards that comes up is the Hierophant in reverse. So this is definitely a foundation card. This is a tradition card typically, but this is in reverse. So this is saying a couple things. Number one, if you are somebody who's typically spiritually sound, and you haven't found yourself in a place where you have been able to do your rituals, if you will, be it, for some people, yoga is that thing for them. The practice of yoga, not just doing yoga, it's different. For some people, it is connecting with a spiritual institution. For some people that is simple meditation. For some people that's just in general taking care of themselves, um, through what I consider radical self-care. Having that sort of alone time to be able to gather their thoughts and actually plan. If you have not been doing those things, this is a card saying that it is time for you to do those things. Remember, those are foundational building things that you do. That is when everything's sort of falling apart, it is where you find your inner strength to be able to move forward. It is that part of yourself that is transcendent, throughout time and throughout situation. It is Carl Jung's idea of individuation. It is that part of yourself that is indivisible, that cannot be divided, through circumstances or time or emotion, even death. And so you need to connect to that sort of transcendent part of yourself. The Queen of Cups sort of follows that as well. Um, this, I feel like this is an energy of having other people's emotions, perhaps even empathically, sort of weighing down on you, weighing down on your decisions that you're making. And the King of Swords comes up next, and it's saying that you really need to sort of take charge and move those energies, either out of your life, or you need to create. And this is another thing that I've been talking about, not just because this isn't just a plug, but I created a series on building boundaries. And so, and I'm going to be releasing that fairly soon. And this is actually talking about that as well, creating better boundaries. So, about a part of the foundation is creating, it's like when you are building a house and creating a fence around that house. That signifies your property, your space, and so this is speaking to me about the need to be able to create better emotional boundaries, especially with the Queen of Cups that was, before it, and being very discerning about who's in your space and who's not in your space, because this is also a card of, perhaps using your intuition in sort of a, rather not listening to your intuition. That would be a better way to say it. Not listening to your intuition. So your intuition's telling you something about somebody or a particular situation, and you're sort of ignoring it, perhaps because the opportunity looks so good, or the person that you're talking to looks so good, that you're not really listening to that part of yourself that has like red flags coming up, and has like it is basically telling you, hey, this is probably not the opportunity for you, but it's an opportunity that's there. So you just kind of take it. And this is basically telling you need to be way more discerning, and definitely hold your space. This is about holding your space. So the Three of Pentacles comes up. This tells me that this is definitely a building period for you, where, where the foundation had crumbled, you're going to build something a lot more solid, but it's definitely going to take a lot of work. And this is actually right underneath the Hierophant. The way that the cards kind of came out was like this. And so you have the Hierophant in reverse, and you have this right underneath. And so this is also telling me that is in all areas of your life, and to first build internally, and then expect that what you're building internally then kind of projects itself outward. Which brings us to, and this is why I would say this is probably more like mid to end May. This brings us to the position of the Empress. So here's you sitting on your throne, using your intuitive nature, having a better grasp of how to build. This is the Empress. An Empress or Emperor built an empire. So this is about your empire. Okay. We have the Knight of Rods in reverse. So this is telling me that if there's information that you are, this is saying a couple things. If there's information that you are waiting on, then you need to be a little bit more patient. The information is coming, whether it be email or text message. If you're waiting for a response to perhaps a position, a job position, then you will be hearing that, but it's going to take a little bit longer than you would like or expect. I would say that this also indicates to me that as you are building, there's going to be some ebb and flow within that. And so you just have to learn to sort of ebb and flow through it, you know? And so there's going to be times when you're flowing, very kind of easily. And then there's going to be a point where it seems a little bit stagnant, but you have to kind of keep building and know that flow will come back. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. What's at the bottom of the deck? We have the Three of Cups in reverse. And so this is telling me that right now is a time for you um to probably not rely so heavily on those around you while you're building, because this is a lot, like I said, this is a lot more internal work than it is external work that needs to be done within this next month to few months, that is actually going to set you up for the next 2 years, you know? And so if you have a tendency, like I said, to be sort of codependent, if you have a tendency to need approval from others, if you have a tendency to only do things when it comes to only do things with others rather in partnerships and stuff like that, this is going to be a time where you're going to be a little bit more independent, and it's going to be really, really important, because there you are building a real solid foundation, a transcendent, foundation for your life. So anyway, I hope that was helpful, and thank you so much for watching this video, and I will talk to you soon. Okay, bye.